All right, we're live. Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen, whoever's watching this live, whoever's going to watch it later on. My name is Mansu. I'm going to be the host for today's show, the Ashkar Show. And today I have very, very interesting guests. And so without further ado, I'm going to jump right in and start introducing them. But just so you get the idea of what's happening, a Druze, a Jew, and a Coptic walk into a Mexican restaurant. And that's what's going to happen today. Well, there's nothing Mexican here. But we're going to have, some of you already know, Roy, the kid, FizyBubalah from Israel. And for those of you who don't know, we have very interesting guests today, which I have so many questions to ask. I've been, got to know him, or at least watched him on social media not long ago. And since then, he's been rising and making very, very interesting content. So we have
Michael.
Yeah. The Coptic Kapara, a freelance Mossad agent. I'm going to jump right, actually, because I'm seeing something right now that is catching my eyes. Michael, you're Coptic, and I'm assuming that your family comes from Egypt, correct?
Correct.
And I'm just guessing right now that you don't live in Egypt anymore because you have a Shiri, Ariel, and Kfir tattoo. Wow. Can you tell us a little bit about this tattoo? What's going on there?
It's actually a pretty simple story. The anticipation to that release or exchange, highly anticipated. The entire country was sort of waiting on pins and needles for the Bibas family to return. And then the lead up to it, there were signs indicating that they would not be returned alive. And I told myself, if this happens, and I hope it doesn't happen, I hope I don't get this tattoo because that means that they come back home alive. But I said, if this happens, I want to do something so that I can keep their memory alive.
Wow.
And it's quite a turn from something I had planned years ago. Years ago, I thought to myself, one day I'm going to get a tattoo for Palestine.
Wow.
I'm going to get I swear to God. I thought I was going to get like a tattoo of like a keffiyeh or the Palestinian flag or something. Like I was going to like wear that and represent it. And, thank God, Tishkot Rabbina, I didn't do it. But, it's quite the dramatic turnaround. But now, I'm in America. People here, they don't speak Hebrew. And so when they see this, they ask, oh, what does that mean? And that just gives me an opportunity to tell them what happened. And we really can't afford to ever forget the kind of evil that exists. We say never forget and never again. But I don't think as a society, especially in the West, like we really uphold that principle.
Wow, man, that's insane. I have so many questions I want to ask you, but just before that, is your image glitchy, or am I the only one that is seeing that in my computer?
It's moving a little. It's a little choppy.
It's a little choppy. The kid, you also see that?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, it is what it is. We can work with it. So here's a question I have for you. Maybe before we jump right in, welcome to all the viewers here. I see Shayna is already here, Alexandra, Colleen, all the people that joined, welcome to the show. I'm actually planning at the end of the show, if anyone want to join and ask a few questions or bring a debate or argue some of the arguments that we brought here, if you're well behaving, I will let you in. If you don't behave, I'm going to kick you out. But basically, I'm going to open that. It's going to be the first time that I do it, so it's going to be, I think, quite fun. But here's a question that I want to ask you. Do you mind telling us maybe just a little bit, what does it mean, Coptic? Is that a Christian? Is that not a Christian? Is it different than the regular Christian that people kind of understand when they think about Christianity?
So the word itself, Coptic, is derived from the Greek word Agyptos, which means Egypt. So Coptic is basically a fancy word for Egyptian, but sort of in today's vernacular, you will hear Coptic in its most common, when people say Coptic, it most commonly refers to people who belong to the Coptic Orthodox Church. So It's the Egyptian Orthodox Church, and we are an ethno-religious group by definition. So since I do want to clarify something because sometimes people make this comment and it's not accurate. Egyptians in general are Coptic. Less than 20% of Egyptians have Arab admixture in them. So most Egyptians are ethnically Coptic. It's just that within the Coptic Orthodox community, you find next to zero admixture of like Arab blood because we just didn't we didn't intermarry. We kept our we just didn't blend like that.
All right. That's interesting. Well, thanks for clarifying that. Now, from what I understood from Roy is that you, or from you right now, you used to be pro-Palestine.
Yeah.
And now you're obviously very much pro-Israel. Can you tell us
Very much
what
so.
happened there?
Yeah. So you guys are going to be in for a treat because I'm about to tell you guys in a few minutes. I'm going to tell you guys something that like I haven't told anybody. But so I grew up in Massachusetts, and in Massachusetts, I lived about an hour and 15 minutes away from the nearest church. So I was sort of isolated from the Coptic community because most of these people that go to church, they live within like 15-20 minute drive of the church. So I was sort of isolated from the Coptic community. Didn't like them either, if I'm being completely honest. I hated Sunday school. I just didn't vibe with them. And then Monday through Friday, I went to a Catholic church in Lowell, Massachusetts, a Catholic school rather. And so I didn't have a lot of interaction with Arabs, Muslims up until I was around 17, which is 2004 when I moved to California. And so when I moved to California, I finished off my senior year in California and I went into college. And college is where I started meeting a lot of Arabs and Muslims. And, you know, it sounds crazy to say this, but by the time I was 13, like I didn't know Iraq was an Arab country. I didn't know what the concept of Arab was because nobody ever told me I was an Arab until after 9/11.
Wow.
So now I'm hearing the word Arab thrown at me, right? So I'm starting to absorb this identity that I wasn't even really sure of. And I've been to Egypt before, right? So, and when I went to Egypt, I looked at the Muslims, I was like, they're just like other Christians. Like I didn't like nobody explained to me that this is like a separate religion and everything. You know, it didn't occur to me like, oh, they wear niqab for a reason. They wear hijab for a reason. But anyway, sorry, so that was sort of a tangent. So getting familiarized with the Arab community here, it was like, holy crap! Finally, people that like I can relate to, like wow, people who speak a similar language to me, if they're not Egyptian, you know, still similar. And it was sort of like, wow, I finally sort of like belong somewhere. Okay. And the thing about the Arab community here, and it transcends religious lines, by the way. So it's not strictly a Muslim thing. Like they are all very pro-Palestinian, except for the Coptic community at large. The Coptic community at large tends to be either neutral or supportive of Israel. And I could say the same thing for the Assyrian community. And to some extent, the Maronite community with the Lebanese.
So
but,
the Coptic
sorry.
and the Assyrians, they're kind of close to each other as communities?
No, they belong to different church. They belong to different congregations. They're not in communion with each other. So I couldn't go to a Assyrian church and participate in their mass. They couldn't do it with us. It's sort of this tricky association. Like I know I could go to an Ethiopian Orthodox church and take communion there, but I couldn't do it with the Greek or the Assyrian.
So here's a question that I have for you. As an American citizen who blended in the Arab community in America, do you feel like the Arab community in America, in a majority, they kind of relate to Palestine, or they relate to Israel, or they kind of standing in the middle, not caring too much?
Oh, it is. First off, it is completely one-sided towards Palestine, but that's for people who consider themselves Arab. Like most of the Coptic community here does not consider themselves Arab. They're very, very against the label of being Arab. I was one of the few where I was like, yeah, I'm Arab. Might as well be. Everybody's calling me Arab in America. Like, might as well be. But yeah, for sure, they're definitely pro-Palestine. Like, it's undeniable. The area.
Very interesting. Sorry for cutting in, but I see that mostly in the West. The Arab identity in the West is way more radical than a lot of Arab mentality and identity in Arab countries. There's a reason that a lot of the Arab countries, they don't support Palestine. They see them as radicals. They see them as, we don't want nothing to do with them. That's why none of them wanted to take, refugees from them or let them come in for other reasons, but that was one of them. But now I've been seeing a lot of, they've been in the news quite a lot, like almost every week. An airplane is coming from Israel with Gazans that are moving to Germany. And I think that is part of Trump's idea of, whoever want to leave, we'll let them live, we'll help him. So I think some are, they're helping them leave and then bringing them here to Europe. And first of all, I'm thinking to myself, like, man, these Europeans haven't learned anything. There's a reason why countries don't want them. Second of all, you know what? If there is a few of them that actually genuinely just want to flee, good people that want nothing to do with it, what I'm worried about is from the Arabs here in Europe or in America, because they've been so radicalized that what they will do, they would look for any opportunity to radicalize a fellow Arab. And if you came from Gaza, they will want to take you and put you on the stall and use you for their own propaganda, which is a very, very concerning jihadist propaganda. So my question to you, have you seen this jihadist mentality, this radical pro-Palestine mentality among the Arabs in the US?
Okay, so this is the part where I'm going to tell you something that I haven't told anybody. In 2021, I converted to Islam.
Okay.
It's tough to talk about because it's one of the most regretful decisions I've ever made in my life.
What made you convert to Islam?
A couple contributing factors. I had gotten out of a pretty tough breakup several months prior. To this day, it's like the toughest breakup I've ever had to go through. That shit broke me. And then a few months after that, I found my brother overdosing on fentanyl, heroin. And thank God I was able to bring him back. I was on the phone with 911 doing the chest compressions and everything, so he's fine. Don't worry about that. But it had me in a very vulnerable emotional state. And I don't say that to paint myself as a victim, because I'm not. And that's something that I want the viewers to understand, is I never, ever want to be looked at as a victim, because I am an adult. I made these horrible choices on my own. Nobody planted these ideas in my head. I made these choices, and I am not a victim. So I just want to clear that out. But in a lot of ways, I think Islam validated my hatred of Israel. Like, it almost felt like
Israel.
That's when I look back now, I feel like that was a contributing factor, was that, my gravitation towards Islam was sort of this militancy, right? That like the world is really fucked up, and the ummah is not doing anything, and it's and keep in mind, this was after the fallout of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter stuff. So the social justice atmosphere is at a fever pitch for this time. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I converted and wasn't Muslim for very long. I'd say within 3 years, I had mentally checked out of Islam. But in those 3 years, I saw some of the most extreme beliefs you could imagine. I'll tell you a story. I was in a group chat, okay? And some of the guys there didn't know that I used to be Christian, right? And by the way, before I converted to Islam, I was basically atheist agnostic since the age of like 18. I was never a religious person. I tried a couple times to get into the church. There's a barrier in the church that allows me to just believe, right? So I was agnostic and atheist for a very long time before I converted to Islam. Um, but so a couple of those guys in that group chat did not know that I used to be Christian, that I came from a Christian family. And they posted a video of Pakistani Muslims burning down churches and like houses in a Christian village.
That's in America.
And they're burning them down in Pakistan. But the WhatsApp
but the
chat.
video was posted in a Muslim group in America.
Yes. And so they posted that video, right? And two of the people in the group chat who did not know that I came from a Christian family said, well, that's what they get, because that's what they deserve, because some other Christian somewhere else in the world had like burned a Quran or something.
Yeah.
And you get desensitized to this this imagery, these videos, but it's very mainstream. I think what the Western world has a problem understanding is just how mainstream extremism is. And it's so mainstream to the point that I don't know you can really describe it as extremism. Is it really extremism if it's not the fringe?
It's
So wait, I have a question. So you say that, first of all, thank you for telling us that. I know it's hard, but and I want to know. So you said that after you become Muslim, you kind of like it was like a gate that opened up, and then you saw like a new kind of evil or like hatred. Is that what happened?
Not immediately. In the beginning, they sort of give you, they call it in Arabic, I forgot what it's called, Islam al-Laziza, the cute Islam. The cute Islam that is about, oh, you take care of mama and baba, you're kind to kittens, and
tradition.
Yeah, this stuff.
Elderly. Yeah.
Islam al-Laziza.
Cute Islam.
But they sort of slowly but surely, most of these people will find themselves in really rigid belief systems. And so it starts off innocent enough where it's like, you cannot congratulate Christians on Christmas, so you can't say Merry Christmas, okay? Because then you're acknowledging their religion and then their beliefs, and that's kufr, that's shirk. So you can't do that. And then it becomes, you can't shake hands with women. Then it becomes like, oh, hey, the Taliban's not too bad. And that's like right around the time. So when the Taliban took over, and then, I'm seeing all these Muslims go, well, we can't really judge them. We're not there. We don't know what's really going on. Inshallah, they're doing good things from the people of Afghanistan. And, inshallah, they're good Muslims.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I can completely understand that, because I see that also here in Europe. You have the Islam that they show the Europeans, the Germans, and then you have the Islam that they speak in Arabic. And most of them, they think I'm one of them when I'm sitting there. So I just listen. Sometimes I ask questions, and yeah, there's just a terrible, deeply inherited hatred towards the Jews and towards the Christian in Islam. And most of them will either not admit it because out of a naiveness, or just an attempt to make Islam look good for peer pressure, because they're living in a Western country and they want to show how good is Islam. But they kind of know, because, they're in the circles. And others will not admit it because they're literally genuinely trying to hide it until they're the majority, and then they can completely expose it. The ones who start to address it are usually, I call them, the most noble and admirable Muslims, or many times they're actually ex-Muslims, just, they converted or left it, and they come and tell you, listen, guys, that's how it is there. There's a lot of bad things happening. You just don't know what's going on under the surface.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about all these pro-Palestinian demonstrations that are happening in the U.S. right now?
Oh, they're idiots. They're idiots. I've only been to one protest my entire life. It was in 2014. Um, and I had this dumbest sign. I'm so glad nobody ever took a picture of me because it was such a dumb sign. It said, Washington, D.C. is occupied territory. So juvenile, so stupid. You know, it was such a, but listen, when you buy when you buy into the clownery, you have to expect a circus.
Hmm. What did they
And
mean by Washington D.C. is an occupied territory? Like occupied?
occupied in the sense that there's the conspiracy theory, the anti-Semitic conspiracy that AIPAC controls every house of Congress and they control the president and they control they control everything. They think that Jewish people like they tell your congressman what to eat at night, when to wake up. Like that's literally their belief system.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They
we
keep
of
telling me that
course
I'm
it's
getting
always the
paid.
Jews.
Yeah,
It's
they keep
always the Jews.
it's always the kid.
Dayman al Yahud, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. They keep telling me that I'm getting
L'chaim.
paid, but I haven't seen it. Yeah, yeah. Since the beginning when I started speaking, like who's paying you? I said, I wish. I mean, if you know someone, let me know. I won't say no to it. But like, what are you talking
Yeah.
about?
I'm
Yeah,
still waiting. He will pay me.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. You want the Druze to pay the Jews now. See what's going on. So,
I
Well,
have a
I'm afraid of
question.
Fizzy asking me for reparations.
Listen, I don't know how many years it was, but come on, we built the pyramids. Like at least give us half of the earnings of all the touristic people, coming in to Egypt. I just a little bit to the Jews. We earned it. We earned
but
it. Come on.
is there really evidence that the Jews built the pyramid? I mean, I'm pretty sure there were slaves in Egypt, but I don't think they built it, right? There were,
The only thing that I know is that back then in the day, before there were currency, the way that the government, the pharaohs, used to make the people of the land pay for living in the land, be protected. So they will give them a notice that from this day on, you will be kind of a slave for a few years and you will build a few stuff. And then after a few years, you will come back home. And that was
Oh,
kind of a
so
payment.
it's sort of like indentured servitude.
okay.
In a sense, it's like slavery with extra steps. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, back to current events. There's something that is very interesting to me. How serious do you feel that these protesters are trying to stop the deportation of Muhammad Khalil?
Oh, they're trying very hard. They're trying extremely hard. That's the one thing that you cannot deny is that these people, they work tirelessly. They work day and night to achieve their ends. And there is an entire network behind this. And then there is a network behind that network. And then you have sort of like the unseen actors in this situation, which tends to lead to foreign actors. But they are working tirelessly to prevent, somebody like Mahmoud Khalil from being deported. And unfortunately, you have members of Congress, like or maybe Congress. I think you have like Jewish members of Congress that like stood up and like were like against it. They had to take this sanctimonious stand to like prevent this terrorist sympathizer from getting deported.
Yeah, what's their argument? I mean, he is obviously not an American. He came to America on a student visa, and he's been literally preaching in America that his goal is to destroy America and the West. America is included part of the West, big time, and also that we need to bring Intifada and glorifying October 7th, supporting Hamas, which is a clear terrorist organization. I mean, if I would go to a country and I'll start supporting a terrorist organization, call for the destruction of that country, and try to incite violence and racism in that country, clearly, I mean, it's clear, as bright as daylight, I should be deported. That there's not a question. They should kick me out or jail me. That's a terrorist activity, kind of supporting terrorism. So what's their argument? Why shouldn't he be deported?
because they have a fundamental misunderstanding of um, your rights and privileges based on your sort of immigration status. They think that, well, he's here, he should just be treated like any other citizen. And that's not how it works. Now, if he was born here and he had his birthright citizenship here, yeah, like, can't really do much about that. But you are a guest here. You are a guest here from, and I think he was born in Syria, and I think he had lived in Algeria for quite a bit. But, you came here as a guest and you are engaged in activities that are, at the very least, highly suspicious, and at the worst, you should probably be thrown in Guantanamo Bay.
Or Area
Like
51 with ET
Area
and
51 too. Yeah,
that's probably a
yeah.
good place to send them. Um, what
I
made?
have. Oh, okay. So
What's your question, Roy? Go
no,
ahead.
I have I have a connecting question to what you said before about also like Mahmoud Khalil and also about the colleges, because you said that correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that after you've been into college, it was like you were bombarded with pro-Palestinian movements and organizations and everything. And it's not the first time that I'm hearing it from people who were pro-Palestinians and they switched to Zionism. They said that when they went, like I'm talking, I know two British people from Pakistani heritage that they were very pro-Palestinian when they came to college. You were in a group and everything with the and other Arabs and other Pakistanis, and then the shift they kind of shifted when they came out of college. Does that make any sense?
I didn't see people shift after college.
I
And
think
I
people
didn't
get
end up,
radicalized in college.
No, I mean
yeah,
the first part may make sense. I mean, not the second part.
Yeah.
I didn't finish college, so I left in the middle. And so I wasn't, I didn't have sort of the tenure that a lot of other students who go to college for the full 4 years and get involved in that kind of stuff that they do. But, they get radicalized, and it's nearly impossible to bring people back, especially if they are Middle Eastern. I think to some extent that if you're, just a regular American, black, white, Hispanic, whatever, that it's a little bit easier because you don't have so much invested in it. Like your family is probably not invested in it and things like that. But for somebody who's Arab, this is like they do get the sense of I can make an impact here. And I have to give them credit. They have made tremendous inroads with this. So what it is today is nothing like what it was when I was in college. I was in college in 2007. I was in college from 2007 to 2010. And it was just nothing like what we see today. The most that I really saw when I was in college was during the week of Israeli Independence Day. To counteract that, they would host at the colleges what they called Israeli Apartheid Week. Yeah.
What a
Nothing
fun.
about Lebanese apartheid against Palestinians, nothing about Jordanian apartheid, nothing about Syrian apartheid against Palestinians, nothing about gender apartheid in Israel.
Nothing
Not
about
in Israel, sorry,
Iran,
Saudi,
nothing
Saudi
about the
Arabia.
regime. Yeah, yeah. They literally ignore every crime under the sun that's happening in Islam and will point out any excuse they can to actually blame the West. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. And um, and then something sort of unique happened. So I kept in touch with the majority of this social circle that I had in college for a very long time. And then what happened is in 2011, okay, that is when the Arab Spring happened. You saw the protests in Tunisia, you saw the protests in Egypt, and then those transferred over to Libya and Syria. And everybody was on the same page for a long time. It was like, yeah, Fauda in Tunisia, yeah, revolution in Egypt, yeah, revolution in Libya. But then when it came to Syria, it was different. People were split down the middle for Syria because in Syria it's similar to Lebanon in the sense that there's various sects and you have different ethnic groups. Okay, and Bashar al-Assad, who's an Alawite, comes from a minority clan. Okay, he controlled the country. So I knew Syrian Druze, I knew Syrian Alawites, I knew Syrian Shia, I knew Syrian Christians, and they supported Bashar al-Assad because that is their only safety net. The
Yeah.
thing about being a religious or ethnic minority in a Muslim country is your only safety net is to be on good terms with the leader, because you never want to be at the mercy of the general population. And
Yeah.
so you had these people supporting Bashar al-Assad, right? And they're supporting what he's doing in Syria. And you notice this complete disconnect from reality and from logic, because on one hand, you will see the same people who are condemning Israel for, civilian casualties because Hamas operates amongst the civilian population. They use like literally human shields. And so, Jewish and Israeli people will say, listen, Hamas is using human shields. We're trying to mitigate the civilian casualty rate, but it's hard to do that in such a densely populated area. And then you go over to Syria, and these same people that would condemn Israel, okay, when they see Bashar al-Assad dropping barrel bombs on people, and the disconnect is the people who are pro-Syria are like, well, they're human shields. What can we do?
How do you explain that? Sorry, how do you explain that disconnect?
I think that disconnect is fundamental to the Palestinian narrative in general. I think because you constantly have to bend reality. You cannot, you have to bend the truth. You cannot work with the truth. The truth isn't as convenient for the pro-Palestinians as it is for Israelis and Jews. Israelis have the luxury of established archaeology, established history, and I'm not just talking from the Bible or the Tanakh or the Quran, although those do count. Those are sort of complementary sources of evidence. But I mean, just throughout history, there have been references to Israel. There, from ancient Egypt to the Romans. I mean, on the coin after the Romans took Judea and Samaria, it said, I think, Judah capta. Judea has been captured.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard to argue against this type of truth, right? It's so solid. Like, how can you argue against it? So you have to lean towards the emotional aspect. And this is where, I was pretty proficient in indoctrinating other people. I probably indoctrinated myself the most. But when it came to indoctrinating other people, if you were on the fence, it was like the perfect opportunity, because I'm going to get you to focus what I want you to focus on. Okay. And when you focus enough on just these pictures of, dead people and stuff, you start to get desensitized and you lose focus of the truth. The first casualty of war is the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what made you change? Someone who obviously entered the camp of the pro-Palestine, you converted to Islam. Actually, now that you are not a Muslim anymore, correct?
Correct.
Does that make you a kuffar then, as per the Islam?
Proud kafir. Kafir wa fakhur.
Proud kafir, yeah. Are you worried in some way that other Muslims might get very upset that you left, because Islam doesn't let leaving? It's not acceptable.
Absolutely. 3 months ago we had Salwan Munka killed in Sweden during a live stream. Absolutely, I'm afraid. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I don't have any sort of anxiety about it. But, Yani, listen, man, these people, they terrorized us back home. They made us afraid to speak our mind. They made us afraid to speak our truths back home. They intimidate you. Okay? And I'm not going to let them do this to me here. Yani, my fate is my fate. I'll know when I get there. But for the now, I have to fight against this tooth and nail, because I was such an accessory to it. That's the thing that I regret the most in my life, was how much of an accessory to this stuff I was, even though I had my own internal doubts. I'm somebody who's a natural skeptic because I grew up in Massachusetts. And Massachusetts, religion isn't taken very seriously. You're taught to ask a lot of questions. And so I went from somebody who was a natural skeptic to now I'm like I said, I was like indoctrinating myself. I don't know if I ever truly bought into what I was preaching to other people, but I think it's because you're sort of entrapped by your social circle, especially like I was like, man, I really don't want to lose this. And I mean, you know, some of these people are friends whom I was around for when their kids were born. I'd been to their weddings. I went to like the janaza prayer services for when like relatives died and stuff like that. So you do form very close bonds with these people to the extent where I mean, this like you feel like they're your family. And that's, I think, what kept me in the longest was I was afraid to lose these friends, even if I had strong doubts about things. I was afraid to lose my entire social circle, which now, yani,
Don't like Muslims or people who convert, once they start thinking about it, look at the point like Islam keeps people Muslim by fear. You know, isn't that like a problem to people wrap their head about it? Because you can leave Christianity, you can leave Judaism, just say, I don't believe in it. No one would
yeah,
care. Seriously, in Israel, I mean, maybe your family will be sad, but no one is going to come and threaten your life. Same with Christianity, you know, they will be very sad, they'll pray for you. But in Islam, you literally will put yourself out there. You know, you're at risk right now. Someone might take it very seriously. In a sloppy hill, you know, realize that's the right thing to do for God. And usually it's going to be people that are down, you know, in a very fragile place in their life, either economically, you know, heartbroken or something tragic happened, and they're vulnerable in that moment. You know, they catch them, and a lot of time they can radicalize them very fast. But just the
hmm
fact that Islam keeps its followers by fear, that Islam, you know, threatens people, you know, you can't leave us, and if you leave as per the Quran, you should be killed. Doesn't that bother like the people in the West when they try to think about this religion that they're trying to protect so much is a religion that have so many values that are just against them, against everything they should be standing for?
Well, I have to say that George W. Bush made a horrible statement following 9/11, and where he said that Islam is a religion of peace. And, you know,
Right.
immediately after 9/11 too. Um, but that, you know, it sort of set up the stage for this very um, romanticized version of Islam where it's like you put them side by side with Christians and Jews and you're like, oh, they're just the same. They value the same things. And they work off of that because they do share a similar root to Abraham, right? But in reality, if you compare scriptures, it's completely different. And I think Muslims have a very poor understanding of what freedom and progress looks like. Because if you bring up the death penalty for apostasy to most Muslims, first off, most of them will say that there's no such thing because it's not mentioned anywhere in the Quran, even though it's mentioned in authentic hadith, okay, that if you leave Islam, you're dead, right? But so, okay, let's say you're somebody who's a little bit knowledgeable and you bring up those hadith, right, about killing apostates. So then the next step is, okay, well, if they know this, I have to, and I'm not saying I have to for myself, I'm saying what I notice they do is they'll be like, well, you know, if you're in a Muslim country and you leave the religion, but you don't tell anybody, khalas, you're fine. And I was like, yeah, but do you understand why that's a problem? Is that like you literally can't be yourself in a Muslim country? You can't speak your mind. Like, why do I have to hide the fact that I'm an ex-Muslim? Like, why are you going to kill me for this? And then they come up with the logic of, well, there's a difference between a murtad and a muharib, right? A murtad is somebody who just simply leaves Islam, but a muharib is somebody who is actively fighting against Islam. So to them, saying out loud, hey, I'm an ex-Muslim. I have a problem with these principles in Islam. I don't like this belief. I don't like this thing it says in the Quran. I don't like what it says in Sahih Bukhari or Sahih Muslim, right? That to them is you fighting Islam.
Yeah. Yeah, you push them to a corner that they gotta fight back. Well, Philip here, thank you so much. Philip Daniel did a super thanks, and I appreciate that. And he's asking a question that maybe one of you want to jump on it and try to answer it. Arabs think that Ashkenazim are East Europeans, but DNA studies shows Ashkenazim are Levanite. Levantine. I never
Levantine.
realized,
Levantine.
how to pronounce that word. Plus Greco-Roman mixed like Maltese. Will Arabs ever accept this? Anyone want to jump on that question? First of all, when you ask the question Arabs, I think you should be specific more. And I'll try to sharpen this. Not all Arabs are Muslims. Not all Muslims are Arabs.
Yep.
And Christian Arabs, Jewish Arabs, atheists, they don't care. Druze Arabs, they don't care. If you're Ashkenazi, not Ashkenazi, you're from Europe, you're from Africa. The ones that actually care mostly predominantly is Muslims. They're the ones that care if you're with them or not. Regarding to them, if anyone want to correct me here, feel free to jump in. Islam doesn't care that much which ethnicity you have. I mean, it's more proud or luxurious kind of to be an Arab Muslim because it came from Saudi Arabia, and that's like, the hardcore of Islam. But you have a lot of Asian Muslims. You have a lot of different, European Muslims. People don't know, for example, that Islam had what they call the Muslim Holocaust. And that was when the Muslim empire expanded like crazy, and they were just going, conquering, looting, destroying, and converting by force anything in their way. And no one was stopping them. They kind of ended up slowing down a little bit because they became like an empire and were not running fast enough. And the Christians came together and started pushing back. That stopped them from converting the world. Some, Christian knights that went and fought back. But the Muslims went and met with the Mongols. And there was a collision there between two very big empires. You can say almost in their prime. And they had like one battle that was like crazy. And I guess I would have loved to be like an eagle over that battle just to see how that battle went, between the Salah ad-Din kind of style of warriors to the Mongols on the horses, different weapons and everything. It must have been an epic battle. But they probed each other. They felt, okay, that's an empire. There's a serious force there. Let's stop. And they didn't attack. But then one day the Muslims did a mistake and they went and slaughtered a convoy of the Mongols and started like provoking them. And then the Mongols came and basically wiped them out completely. Destroyed, killed, burned. And they got all the way to the Caliphate. They plucked his eyes, I think, and murdered his family. And they burned all the books. And Islam, lost so much of its history and of its progress and everything in that Holocaust. But what happened is the Mongols converted and then they became Muslims themselves. So then you had pictures of Muhammad on some walls that they found today that he looks Asian. And yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. That is from them.
That's why it's happening. Suddenly you have like Muhammad, but
it's like white Jesus.
Yeah, and then they brought white Jesus, the Catholic, white, blonde, and blue-eyed Jesus.
Blue-eyed Jesus.
And they brought Islam more into Asia. So Islam expanded into a lot of religions. And that's what I always say. The problem is not with the people. The problem is not being an Arab. The problem is not with any human. Humans were all the same, just a different kind of color of skin and maybe just, facial composure kind of. But if an alien will come and he would look at planet Earth, he might say you all look alike. A Martian will come, I don't know. But to us, we see it. The problem is with the religion. With the religion, indoctrination in the religion, that indoctrination doesn't expect. So I hope that helped answer your question, Philip. Like I said, guys, if anyone is interested, I'm going to send an invite here. I'm going to copy it.
One thing I want to touch on to what Philip said about Ashkenazi Jewish people. This is actually a really perfect comment to sort of highlight the inherent racism and colorism in the Palestinian movement, because they will look at Ashkenazi Jewish people because they tend to be of fairer complexion. They'll be like, "Oh, well, you're not real Jews." They'll jump on that. "Oh, well, you're a Khazar converts." There's that old anti-Semitic conspiracy that you were the descendants of the Khazarians and who converted and all that. So. But I want to highlight a bit of hypocrisy in this way of thinking, right? Because, they don't see Ashkenazi Jewish people as being real Jews because they're light-skinned, okay? But if you go to these, and by the way, I've seen Polish Jews way darker skinned than me. I'm like an Ashkenazi Egyptian, okay? So, seriously. But just to highlight the hypocrisy of their line of thinking, if you go to these protests, okay, and you see the Jewish people that are supporting them in these protests, it's always the whitest Jews on earth. Jacob Berger is the whitest Jew on earth. Yet, because he supports the Palestinians, he's a Jew. MashaAllah.
Yeah. He's a useful idiot. They love him. They love
Yeah,
it.
I will add something. It connecting to what you said. It's not just the pro-Palestinian, but yeah, it's the far left pro-Palestinian agenda of being so inherently like glued to that idea of racism, always talking about racism and black and white, and always, and but you will never see them talk about Jews the same way that they talk about black people, or that the same way they talk about Asian people or Latin American people, because for them Jews will always be white. It doesn't matter if it's a black Jew from Ethiopia. It doesn't matter if he's a Moroccan Jew. For them, the second you hear that it's a Jew, it's like you make him white in your head, and that's kind of an obsession that the far left has.
Yeah.
That I heard a black historian, journalist, I forgot his name. He said that Asians and Jews will never be accepted to the left, to the far left, because they will always try to succeed and will never play the victim card. And that's not what the far left wants. The far left wants a victim to always promote, right? To fight for. Like, if you're a far left activist, who would you fight for? For someone who doesn't want you to fight for? It's logical, but it is just messed up.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to answer some of the comments that people are writing here as well. In the Middle East, they don't say these things. Like, literally, the Arabs in Israel, in the Middle East, they don't say you're white, you're not Jew. It's just the whole obsession with the color of your skin is coming from the West, mostly from America.
Yeah.
Seriously, over there, they're trying to throw their own internal kind of political strife that they have and just put it on other countries. White supremacists. No one says that here. Like, literally, you have Arabs here. You see a Moroccan era Jew, you see an Ashkenazi Jew. They're Jewish. Color. It's literally, it's not an issue like it is in the West. And that's insane how they try to lie. But you know why they do that? Because everywhere they go, these pro-Palestinian supporters, they try to find a weakness in that society and then exploit it. And usually the most easy weakness you can find today in Western civilization is humanitarians. They're so obsessed on trying to, and it's a good thing, it comes from a good place at least, women's rights and racial stuff. And that's what they target. That's why, if you look at the prime example, a lot of the feminist movement have been hijacked to become pro-Palestine, which is insane because, there's nothing on this face of this earth that abuse women as much as in Palestine and the likes.
Sure.
And then you have the Black Lives Matter. You know how they call Arabs in Arabic? Do people know the word?
Abid.
You mean blacks?
Yeah, blacks. Sorry, not Arabs. Black.
Yeah.
Habit,
Yeah.
which is a slave.
Yeah.
So the Black Lives Matter is going full on supporting a group that just literally call them the word slave. It's insane. I was once hiking in Jordan and we went and we saw a Bedouin camp. And I was walking the whole land of Jordan, and we wanted to go and ask them if there's water, so on the trail, that's how we found water sometimes. And we paid them sometimes for some supplies. And I asked the guy there if he have some, tomatoes or supplies that I can take and some water. He said, no problem. I'm going to send my abid to go and bring it.
Jesus.
And he opened the nargila for me. And that was completely normal for him. And I was with a European girl. He's like, he just said he's going to send his slave. And I said, yep, welcome to the Middle East. And he just sent a black person. So you have Black Lives Matter, supporting that. And then you have Queer for Palestine. They throw queer people out of rooftops in Palestine. But then you have them. So what I'm saying is they will come to a society, they will see who are the most kind of vulnerable or which is the most hot topic that is like, a soft spot for the society, and they will exploit it. And that is what they're doing. And that's why the whole obsession with Ashkenazis, they're Jews, they're not Jews, they're white supremacists, it only exists in America. It is not existent in Israel. You would not see a Palestinian, just like someone said, when Hamas broke into the Gazans, when they broke into Israel October 7th, they did not go and say, oh, he's white, he's not Jew, don't kill him. He's Jew, kill him. They killed everyone. The same thing the Nazis. They didn't go around and say, oh, let's see him. He looks more. No, they killed everyone that was Jewish.
They killed everyone, not just the Jews. They killed even the Arabs who lived in Israel. They told them, we are Muslims, we are Muslims. And they told them, I remember, I just sent you a video about this, Mansour. The Hamas fighter told him, okay, so tell me a verse from the Quran. And the guy told him. And then he said, I don't know this verse. Anyway, you're living with the Jews, and that's enough as a punishment for you to be killed. And they killed them.
They were barbaric, bloodthirsty murderers and who were on drugs, So they came to kill. They killed dogs, they killed cows, they killed humans, they killed Muslims, Christians, they killed a pregnant Muslim woman that had a baby in her stomach. Like literally, she was a mother of 9. They killed her.
Yeah.
So there's a video of that guy who says, "You guys murdered the Quran. Shame on you. You killed the Quran by killing his wife."
Mm-hmm.
So, but then comes these people in the West that supports them. That's kind of insane. But anyway, I want to go back to the point of what made you do that transformation. You became Muslim. You became pro-Palestine. And then suddenly you do that whole shift and you are full on pro-Israel right now with Hebrew tattoo of saying Shirin Ariel and Kfir on your hand and the pin that I see. What made you change?
There was definitely several contributing factors. I will say one that people sort of scoff at a little bit, but I do think is pretty important, is you have to take a step back sometimes and look at who is allied with you, right? Which people are coming to the defense of this cause that you're so invested in. And two of the people who I despise that became pro-Palestine are Candace Owens and Andrew Tate. Candace Owens is, she's whatever she is. She's a grifter extraordinaire. That's a no-brainer. But Andrew Tate is a different case because this was a guy who was charged with sex trafficking in Romania, and he clearly converted to Islam to latch onto that market to get that sort of support, right? Mm-hmm. And so I bet you Andrew Tate doesn't know the most basic things about this conflict. Like if you were to ask him, between what sea and what river, he wouldn't be able to tell you. But so something that I noticed Muslims do with Andrew Tate, right, is despite how vocal Andrew Tate was about his own crimes, like he's on video saying, yes, I did this. This is how I tricked women into falling in love with me and putting them on webcams, right? What I noticed Muslims did with that is they would use every sort of loophole to try to legitimize Andrew Tate. And you get the impression that, hey, these people care more about a Muslim sex trafficker than his non-Muslim victims, right? And so when I saw that Andrew Tate came out supporting Palestine, that was a fucking huge blow for me, because then I had to look at myself, right? And I had to look at myself and be like, am I doing what the Muslims are doing with Andrew Tate? Am I spending my time defending the monsters at the cost of the Jewish victims, and also the Arab victims from October 7th, the Arab Israeli victims. So that took me a step back, and then but I didn't get out. That's the problem, man. That's the thing that I sort of hate myself for, is that I had these moments where, you sort of take a step back and you look at things and you're like, this is really fucked up, but I've been in this for so long. Is it too late to leave now? And so those watching, if you're on the fence, it's never too late to leave. Because the only worst thing than being 37 in pro-Palestine is being 38. And the only worst thing is being 40 and being 50. And I've seen these motherfuckers who are in their 50s and their 60s. They're arguing with Rudy Rochman and Sahar in Central Park and shit. Like, and it's just, it got to the point where I didn't want to be like that. And then unfortunately, it took way longer, man. Like, it came to, I have a very hard time with bullshit, right? So I have a pretty strong bullshit detector. And like, I just got sick of it. Like, it was built up over so much that I was like, dude, I can't do this anymore. And I was having conversations with people in that group chat on the side, and we're both saying, this is really fucked up, dude. Like, this is really fucked up. Like, why are we supporting this?
Yeah.
And not only that, like, fine, I get you don't care about Israelis, right? If you're this strong, pro-Palestinian nationalist or strong pro-Islamist, right? Fine, like, I guess, yeah, I can see why you don't care about Israelis. But you threw the population in Gaza into the lion's den. You had to know that this was going to be the aftermath. You had to know that Israel was going to go hard, and rightfully so. Listen, man, if my dog was abducted, like that one dog that was abducted and was recently brought back, I would burn the fucking world down to get my dogs.
Yeah.
Did you have any conversations with your former friends about like their beliefs, and did you like confront them about like, did you say like, why did you lie to me, or does that something that you really believe in?
These people are too far gone. They're too far gone. It's even the one that I was having conversations with on the side, like, he recognized that it's a fucked up situation, but because he's such a strong believer, and I was never a strong believer. I've never fasted Ramadan. From the moment that I converted to the moment that I left, I might have went to the mosque 8 times, maybe 8 times. Only surah I can recite is Surah Al-Fatiha. I went to Islam because it validated a hatred that I had. But this guy that I was talking to, he could acknowledge that it's a fucked up situation, like in that, Hamas is responsible for this war and the bloodshed. But he's such a fundamental Muslim that he's like, yeah, but they're Jews, so I don't care. And he had the same attitude towards Shia too. He had the same, like, Shia and Jews go to hell. So
Yeah.
he's happy when Israel bombs Iran, but he's also happy when Israel gets bombed.
You're talking about Andrew Tate?
No. I'm talking about my friend that I was talking about.
Your friend. Yeah. I think Candace Owens, I think proved to a lot of people that he's just a grifter of social media attention, and she's just looking to be relevant. And also, I think she's just not so smart. Andrew Tate is definitely a con artist. He's definitely a con artist who found a very good home for himself in Islam because he can abuse women and it's going to be tolerated there. But you know what? He's not a dumb person. But when Piers Morgan asked him, is Hamas a terrorist organization, he was just wobbling all around. And why is that? Because Mr. I'm all out of the matrix. I'm out of the matrix. I'm top G, all this nonsense. Have went and became part of the Muslim matrix. Now they're paying him money. He's not going to say a word that will go against them. And that was like his thing, that he is, going to speak the truth that no one want to speak. Well, you're not going to say a single word that goes against the Islam indoctrination, which is very much anti-Israel. But yeah, it's funny that con artist, then Brazilian, whatever that name, this guy.
Oh, Jesus, I hate that guy.
Yeah.
I hate that guy so much.
Yeah,
I hate him for his views, and I hate that he doesn't train legs. So I'll never take the views of somebody seriously who doesn't train legs.
Yeah, exactly. They're just trying to look good. They're not trying to be strong or healthy. Yeah. So no, that's a big shame for the followers of Islam that they actually support these guys. But that's
it's the horseshoe theory, right? It's the far right and the far left need someone to latch on and find a scapegoat, right? To say who's the bad guy, who's doing all the harm, why is America failing, and introspection is never a good, they could never introspect, the far left and the far right. So they'll have to say, well, it's somebody that did that, and it's, well, who is the best scapegoat in the entire history? If it's not the Jews, if it's not us, like you said about APAC controlling, occupying Washington D.C. It's amazing how much the far left and the far right will agree with one another more than me, you, and Mansour will like agree with them. It's insane.
Mhm.
It's insane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
all,
very
all roads lead back to the Jews.
yeah,
That's the point.
that's very interesting because when I was speaking to an Iranian activist by the name of Niak in the UK, and I asked him how is it that the far left, goes in bed with radical Islam, and you can also look at the far right. In Nazi Germany was maybe the top example of what they like to call as far right, although they were not really, back then considered, but they're like the example of how the far right would look like, or what people like to imagine. And looked at both of them, the horseshoe. They both of them came to the same place where what they do, they sided with the Muslims and they hated the Jews. Why is that? That's
Mhm.
very interesting. Because as per the whole theory of Nazi Germany, the Muslims should be Semite as the Jews. But they went and literally shared information, trained together, and were talking about how to do, how the Muslims in Palestine, by the way, that was the Mufti of Palestine, how are they going to come and help the Nazis to eradicate all the Jews? Once they're done with the Jews in Europe, they can come and they're going to do the job for them. So they were literally planning together how to genocide the Jews.
They gave the Mufti an honorary
Yeah, he
certificate
was proud. He
of
could see
being
this.
like an Aryan. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He was
Yeah,
he
an
was
honorary
beaming out of
Aryan.
joy in all the pictures. You see him
yeah,
standing there like a little kid who just met his favorite football team. And he's like standing next to Messi or Ronaldo. He's like so happy standing next to Hitler. And
I can't believe you did what I wanted to do so many times and I couldn't do it.
yeah, I wanted to kill them. You guys are so good at it. He's like beaming out of joy and pride
yeah.
and admiration. And then you see, no wonder that in so many Muslim houses, they have a lot of admiration to Hitler. And you go in Gaza, they have so many, they have barber shops and restaurants that they name Hitler, October 7, all kind of names. And then you have so many Mein Kampf books that were translated to Arabic. Some of them were even translated, to fit children, so that they can teach children the teaching of Nazi Germany. And then you have that in Europe. You can see so many videos of people walking in Europe and asking Muslims, "What do you think about Hitler?" And say, "Yeah, we like him." Why? Because he was really good at killing Jews. So far right and far left tend to meet in the same agreeing point where they kind of either want to use Islam or like Islam, and they hate the Jews. And that's a bit insane.
I
Well,
also
even
see
Hitler
that.
said that he preferred Islam over Christianity.
Oh, really?
Hitler made that statement. Oh, yeah, he said that he considered Christianity to be very meek and that he appreciated the warrior, the militant spirit of Islam. But because most Muslims were Arabs, Hitler also considered Arabs Ubermensch, and he wasn't, he couldn't, no way he would take on the Arab religion as it was. Um, so, yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. For me, it's insane how in Germany, where they swore never again, and then many people in Germany are supporting Nazis, basically. A lot of these pro-Palestinian radical Muslims here in Germany are behaving and preaching exactly what the Nazis did, only a more barbarian religious version of it. And then you have Germans now supporting them. Like, what happened to never again, guys? So that's
I
really
think that I think there's something that I just watched a podcast with a pro-Palestinian French guy, and he talked with a Dutch actress who played on Game of Thrones, and she is now a pro-Palestinian. And she said something very interesting. She said that a few years ago, just like 3 years ago, she started being very like advocating for um, like global warming. She was talking about global warming. She said, I never knew about like the situation of global warming and how bad it is after I heard that, that like people are talking about it. And she said that was kind of her lead way, like that thing that brought her also to be a pro-Palestinian. And now, just to be clear to anybody here, I think about global warming. I do think that it is a problem. I do agree that there's a problem, but I think that this is kind of what we see right now. The pro-Palestinian have that kind of like gigantic umbrella of saying human rights, global, global warming, LGBT, black rights, apartheid. They're saying everything under the umbrella. And so that if you just advocate for just one of those things, you will have to, like by their definition, to be also pro-Palestinian. And this is how you see, like, what's her face? The girl that said, shame on you. What's her face? Greta Thunberg.
Greta Thunberg, yeah.
That's why you see her being a pro-Palestinian right now. But because it's a logical way of saying, okay, because I am against global warming, so I have to be also on the pro-Palestinian side. That is their logic. We, on the pro-Israel side, we are not trying to say, save us, save the world, right? We are not saying that. But the pro-Palestinians say, if you save Palestine, you will somehow save the whole world. Like, everything will be okay.
No, 100%. I saw a comment a few days ago that, like, one of the dumbest things I've ever read in my life. It was on one of the Pro-Pali influencers page. There was a comment that said, "Freeing Palestine will free us all. Liberating Palestine will liberate us."
That's like saying freeing ISIS will free us. Freeing Al Qaeda.
It's just,
Free the Taliban.
people don't think about these statements, and that's part of the reason why, like, it was slowly but surely I was making my way out of this death cult, and I think that it's really important that we recognize it for what it is. It is a death cult. I'm sorry if you're pro-Palestinian and you're watching. Look at me right now. You're in the modern day Nazi party, period. But I had become completely disillusioned by the time April or May had rolled around. Like, I had very, very limited posts on social media about it. By the time May came around, I had, like, taken off every pro-Palestine post I had. I took off Free Palestine from my bio, everything. And I thought I would just be quiet. Like, I was like, all right, this is just my life. I'm not political anymore. I'm not going to make political statements and everything. But I think it's due to the fact that I was watching people like the dude Hamza Absorber, I think, and the other guy Bilal, the one who does the Jamar Gary type shit.
Yeah.
Like, so I was watching that, right? And like, these people are just harassing Israelis. They're just harassing Jewish people. There's no real end to what they're doing. They're not trying to have, like, real conversations. The one real conversation that Hamza had with official Sahar, he was dismantled. I mean, picked apart. And so I was like, you know what? Like, I have a computer. Why don't I get on Omegle and just meet Israelis and talk to them, right?
Yeah.
And I figured what I would do is I would just do the opposite. Like, okay, there's people out there harassing Israelis, so I want to be the one, Arabic speaking dude on Omegle that, if when he matches up with an Israeli, just be kind to them and humanize them and talk to them. Like, you never know. Like, you find out that these are truly great people, and I found that out, is that they're truly great people. One of my close friends to today, from around the time May and June, is a guy named Mike. He's in Israel. Mike, if you're watching, I love you, bro. He was one of the first friends I made, and I just continued on that path. It was almost therapeutic in a sense, to be a human being with the Israelis, because so much in the Palestinian movement is explicitly against humanizing Israelis. They're explicitly against normalization with Israelis, and it doesn't matter how fucking nice you are to them. Okay, it doesn't matter.
We lost your audio.
It doesn't matter.
Oh,
Hello?
I think it's disconnected. Like, we can hear you very well.
Give me 1 second.
All right. We have Alex, who's going to be joining right now. She asked to join. I'm going to join her. I just want to say thank you to Philip for the generous super like. I forget the name of these things. Burning Tires is environmentalist.
Super chat.
When Greta came to the media, I got so much heat because I was from the beginning, and I'm so proud that I actually spotted it. I came and I said that it is irresponsible and our parents should be held accountable because they're using, a mentally ill kid that have no clue about environment issue, just to promote it, they're damaging that kid. And I said it back then. I said, it's not helping anything. No serious organization right now that is, polluting the earth or stealing, minerals from the planet is going to look at her and says, oh, wow, now that she spoke, I'm going to stop doing it. Actually, they thought it was a joke. It was a funny joke. They were actually very glad that this is your champion. But her parents were abusing that. And I felt that this was, borderline criminal, how the parents use that. Another question I want to answer quickly is, will Europe survive, and how? No matter what government in the UK won't deport them, especially the second generation born here, what can we do? That was by Lou. My question is, if Europe doesn't stop the expansion of Islam, Europe will lose. America the same. Anywhere that Islam becomes a majority would undoubtedly lose its Western Christian identity. There's no way around it. And then a lot of very bad things will follow, most likely. Bad things, I'm saying bad things to the Western people, to the freedom. If you're a Muslim and you want that, especially if you're a Muslim man, then you might say, yeah, that's good for me. I can get off with a lot of crimes and still get them. But anyway, Coptic, you want to finish the sentence that we were saying before I have Alex jump on the show as well?
I was just saying that it doesn't matter how nice you are to them, because the idea of normalization is so prohibited. It's so prohibited to humanize the Israelis. And we always did this victim blaming thing where Israeli civilian casualty dies. Somehow it's always Israel's fault. They use the Hannibal Directive. There's like a million different excuses. But so it doesn't matter if you're Ben Gavir or you're Yuval from the Academy Awards. And by the way, Yuval from the Academy Awards, he got his ass chewed out online by the pro-Pallies. Because the second he said October 7th, you on the book, you Yuval! Like, October 7th, how dare you bring up the innocent Israel? Like, I swear to God, that was every other comment.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw how many people, pro-Palestinians, attacked him, and I won't say I was happy, but I was kind of like, I would just say it was karma. It was kind of karma, It's that's you get what you saw, Hey, Alex.
Hey,
Hello,
Roy.
Alex, and welcome to the
Hi.
show.
Hi, Mansour. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Hi, Mike.
Our pleasure.
First of all, I really wanted to thank you, Mike, because I think it takes a lot of courage and a lot of moral clarity for doing what you're doing right now. And we all really, really appreciate you. And my question would be, I know that you already touched on this in other platforms, and we've already talked about it as well. But I think it would be interesting for other people to hear what has been the reaction so far by pro-Israeli people and Jewish people to what you have been doing, the stuff that you've been talking about.
Oh my God. It has been an incredible outpouring of nothing but love and support, and it humbles me because, for a long time I hid who I was, and this is another one of the regrets I had, was I wasn't forthcoming about my, support for the pro-Palestinian narrative, because I always had this fear, well, they're going to reject me. This is on the heels of the worst massacre since the Holocaust. There's no way that they'll, be okay with it. Like I understood it too. Like I couldn't have blamed people if that's how they reacted. Like, and me, I'm petty. Like if I would probably, I probably wouldn't like me, but it's been really humbling. And like I'll tell you one message that stuck to me. One lady wrote on the video that I put up on the Coptic page, commented that it was the first time she had felt hope since October 7th. And like, it was, it's tough to read that. And you have people messaging me, showering me with praise and compliments. You're such an amazing person. Thank you. And the entire time I'm going, dude, I'm a piece of shit. I was a fucking scumbag back in the day. Like, it's almost hard for me to accept that they're embracing me. Like, they're more forgiving to me than I am to myself. And so it's been an extremely humbling experience. And part of the thing that I am sort of doing is one of the things that I think leads to um, a lot of anti-Semitism is people just have a very poor understanding of who the Jewish people are. An extremely poor understanding. People don't understand the history. I have right now a book by David Friedman. I don't know if you know him, but he was the former U.S. ambassador to Israel. It's called One Jewish State. Okay. It proposes the idea for an alternative to the two-state solution. I haven't got too far into it. I've only read the first chapter, and it talks about how look at all these places of Jewish historical significance, the Mount Olives, the tombs and stuff, and then wait, these places aren't even internationally recognized as being part of Israel yet. This is where Jewish history is. Like, this is undisputably Jewish history. Judea and Samaria is undisputably Jewish historical land. Now, I'm not going to make an opinion on what I think the solution should be. That's a little bit above my pay grade. But I do want to help clarify to people who the Jewish people actually are and like break down the history for them in a way that they can understand. So I'm not sure if that answered your question. I just sort of went off on a tangent.
No, it did. It totally did. And yeah, your voice is so important. We've talked about it a lot. With Roy, I've talked a lot about this. Most people will not listen to Jewish people. So someone who has, intimate knowledge from the other side, someone who used to have the opposite position, taking the sense that you are taking now is huge. It's huge. And your voice is extremely powerful, and it can reach places that other voices cannot. And even though I've never been pro-Palestinian myself, but I'm not Jewish, and I was woefully ignorant. I woke up to the reality on October 7th, and it was kind of the same thing. I had to educate myself because all around me, all I had was propaganda. So I know how important it is, and I know how important voices like yours and Mansour's and others have been in terms of educating me and enabling me to also try and reach other people. So it's really, really important. Thank you.
It's
I
an
will
Thank you.
honor
say
and a
that
privilege to be doing what I'm doing. It truly
I will,
is.
I will say on a personal level that when I saw your first video, my first instinct was to send you a message and clarify to you from my position that, first of all, that you touched a nerve. It was very emotional. Like I saw your video and I saw you're coming from conviction and you really speak from the heart. But I also wanted to tell you that I do not think you have, again, from my position, something to apologize for, because I can understand, like Alex is saying, you are so engulfed with propaganda and people telling you what to think, and you wanted to be part of something, to belong. I have a privilege of being an Israeli Jew who lives here. I don't know how I would be if I would be as a Jew in America, if I would be pro-Israel or not. I don't know, because the propaganda is so strong, and the need to belong is so strong. So I don't think, from my perspective, again, I don't think you have something to apologize, but I do understand what, like, your position.
Let me push back on that a little bit. If this was 40 years ago, 50 years ago, maybe even 30 years ago, I could see that. But we live in a digital age where information is so easily accessible, and I knew a lot of the information. That's the thing. That's why I say, the pro-Palestinian narrative is to circumvent the truth rather than work with the truth. Okay? And you brought up the idea of propaganda, and I don't think a lot of people understand this. Propaganda is not meant for your opposition. Propaganda is always meant for the people that already believe what you believe in. Okay, and if you look at how people are recruited into the pro-Palestinian cause, okay, if you've ever studied marketing, there's something called the marketing funnel. It starts off with awareness, consideration, buy-in, and retainment. And so they
Mhm.
really use this sort of funnel system to bring people into their cause, and it is very effective. And that's why, you know, I am getting better at forgiving myself, but I do feel like some shame is a good thing. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. And I think I should wake up, remorseful about what I did, because let's be honest, let's not water it down. It was evil. It was evil what I was doing. So I don't want to let myself off the hook and present myself as a victim. So I just want people to, understand that. That's my little piece.
I get that. I get that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're coming close to the end. It's been already an hour and 20 minutes, and it was a fascinating conversation. I want to leave a little bit time for people to have questions, or if anyone want to jump in and say something. Let me read some of the comments. I'm getting better at this. I can start the comments, and then I can. Yeah, when it came out with, I can say it because I'm a Jew. I wanted to lose it with him. We're talking about here about what's his name? This Dave Smith, the guy that was in Joe Rogan's show. Dave Smith, I fear that he represents a lot of young Americans right now. It's becoming trendy in America. And you can correct me, Coptic freelancer Mossad agent, if you think that I'm wrong. But it looks to me like a lot of Americans right now is becoming trendy to question everything about the establishment, regardless of history, facts, and morality. So suddenly, yeah, Churchill was the bad guy. Osama bin Laden might have been right. Who knows if Hitler was the bad guy, like they say? I'm a free thinker. I'm outside the matrix. I can think however I want. No one is going to tell me who's the bad guy. I'm going to tell them what I choose. And when you put that, and you put lack of knowledge, and you put a generation that doesn't know how to read books, and their source of knowledge is, TikTok videos, it becomes very dangerous. And what's his name? Dave Smith, whatever his name, that guy.
Yeah.
What this guy is doing, he's literally playing on that. You can see the way he's talking. He's like, what, am I not allowed to have an opinion? I'm not an expert, but then you go and you check every video. Literally, lately, every video, he's talking about the Israeli conflict and Palestinian conflict as if he's an expert. And then Douglas Murray confronted him. He's like, wait, you've never been there? And you talk so much? I mean, you expect an expert. If you say one thing, that's your opinion. Good. I have an opinion about the Chinese or the Russians. Good. You can have an opinion about anything you want. I have an opinion about dolphins and penguins. Are they really, controlling Antarctica, or are they really operating the orcas? Orca is just a penguin that jumps in the water. It's like, again, whatever nonsense you want to say. That's good opinion.
We need to have a video about that. We need to have a video about that.
My mind is just going on, because orcas do look like penguins when you think about it. But anyway, if you put them on shore and you make them stand, they will look like a penguin. Let's be honest. Same hands, fail. But my point is, if you say it one time, okay, it's a joke, you're a comedian. You say it twice, you know what, maybe it's trying. But you're talking about it all the time, then I would expect you to once visit Antarctica and see the difference between an orca and a penguin, because you're talking about it all the time, but you've never been there. So all your source is what? From distorted images from ChatGPT. That's a good case. ChatGPT is at least as knowledgeable, or just, consuming TikTok and social media. So he pretends to be like he's not an expert while he's bashing so much against Israel. And it's just a trendy thing. It's becoming a trendy thing to be cool, to be outside the box, to question everything. And it's, that's what happened when you get things out of context.
I think it's not just that. It's not just that, but I saw after him having the conversation with Douglas Murray, he came on Piers Morgan to defend his position, and the guy who came against him was a military expert.
Yeah.
And he again told him, listen, you don't know what you're talking about. You speak of all those high words and everything, and like you have a very nice vocabulary, but I don't think you really understand the definitions of the stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then Dave Smith said something very interesting. He said, but I am coming from a humanitarian perspective, a moral perspective of saying that war is wrong. Oh my God, listen, guys, I think we cracked the case.
Yeah.
War is gone. War is wrong.
Yeah.
Bad. Killing people is bad.
Yeah.
Us
living here.
How could I never saw it it's just like, my God, that opened my mind. I was shocked. Yeah.
He represents a whole generation that think with emotions and not with logic. And whatever makes you feel good must be right. Whatever doesn't make you feel good must be toxic and must be the blame on the government. That's like, kind of this mentality, or the blame on the rich people. It's just, anyway. So yeah, I was extremely was frustrating watching him talk, because he was just
I have a question.
steroids.
I have another question for you, Coptic, Mike. I like to call you Coptic Zionist. I just like it sounds so good. Yeah, it rolls on the tongue. So you said, rightfully so, that it's very hard to debate them. I tried many times to debate them, the pro-Palestinians. How, do you think Israel could do anything as a PR stand to fight this? Like, there's nothing we can we do anything, or it's just like a lost cause?
I mean, there is the chance that more people like me speak up. I think that would, and though that's not something that Israel could necessarily do, that take, initiative on the behalf of individuals. But as far as like what Israel can do on a PR front, absolutely not. You have to understand that back to the Palestinian narrative is constantly labeled as Zionist propaganda. And this is even if you try to bring up what Palestinians have done to other Arabs. Okay, so if you bring up what Palestinians did to Lebanon or did to Jordan, which is indisputable, okay, you will get yelled at for repeating Zionist talking points. And you are up against a machine, okay, that pumps out propaganda, that keeps their audience retained 24/7, and is damn near impossible to compete with. There's that saying that a lie makes its way halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to put its shoes on, and that's what we're up against. The thing that Israelis can really sort of lean on comfortably is the fact that they have history on their side, they have archaeology on their side, and they've also been the ones that keep getting fucking attacked and then whooping ass. Like, they've never started a war. Here's the fact about Israel that people really, when they hear it, it's sort of like, okay, I'm gonna tell you it. Israel has never fought another democracy. Israel has never fought another country where the women were fully emancipated. Israel has never fought a country that wasn't on the brink of or has been in a civil war. Listen, they had a civil war in Gaza before they even came. They're not even a country yet. They had a civil war. And Israel has never fought a country that has LGBT rights. Israel has never fought a country whose leader left in a peaceful transition of power. Every single country that Israel has fought, the leader was either assassinated, he fled, he was overthrown, or he died. I was watching an interview with Ben Gurion. I have a subscription to Skyflix, so I get to watch Jewish and Israeli media whenever I want, right? So I was watching this interview with Ben Gurion, and the interviewer, and this is quite dated back from the 60s, but the interviewer is asking, what do you think of, I think the leadership at the time was Golda Meir and Moshe Dayan and Levi Eshkol, right? That was sort of the trio at the time. And they were asking him, what do you think of what they're doing? And it occurred to me right then and there that you don't have that in the Arab world. There isn't a former leader talking about what the current leader is doing, okay? Because the last leader had to die for that former leader to get there. It's a democratic process, and the world does not appreciate democracy enough. The world takes for granted that, there are countries like the USA, Israel, Western Europe, that we have these liberal values, and we should be proud of them. We should be proud of them. I refuse to bend to the idea that all cultures are equal. They are absolutely not equal.
No,
I hear that. Yeah.
No, it's the dumbest thing to think that all countries are equal and that all countries are good, because why is it then that many countries just people from that country want to move to the US? Or why is it a lot of Arabs in the Middle East want to move to Israel? You have barely any Arab in Israel that would want to move to Lebanon, Syria, or Jordan. Forget about Gaza. It's a very funny and interesting thing. Like, most Arabs in Israel actually are very happy to have an Israeli passport. You tell them, now we're going to take your passport, going to send you to Lebanon. Hell no. Go to Lebanon and you find many Arabs tell them, listen, I'm going to take your Lebanese passport, send you to Israel, and him and his family will be safe. He will say yes, absolutely yes. Same thing in Egypt, same thing in Jordan, and a lot of these countries. So not all countries are equal. That is a very silly thing to think. That's like saying that all football teams are equal. There's a better one. better football teams. There are worse. That's like saying like that all ice creams are, tasty. No, there's better ice cream. There's better ice cream. It's just like the way of life.
Strawberry,
Yeah,
strawberry ice cream.
Halva,
People don't
halva.
have enough pride in the values that they hold. The top 10 worst countries in the world to be a woman, majority Muslim. The top 10 worst countries in the world to be a Christian, majority Muslim. The top 10 worst countries in the world to be LGBT, majority Muslim. The top 10 worst countries to be an apostate, all Muslim. You cannot tell me these cultures are equal. You cannot tell me they produce the same output. It's you have to. I'm sorry, you have to be on crack to think that.
Yeah. And that's why it's so clear that once an Islamic, population becomes a majority, not even a majority, once it becomes about 30% of your society, you're done. You're done. There is no way back unless there's going to be a lot of bloodshed involved. You're done. So all the people that think that war is bad. Yes, guys, war is bad. But you know what's worse than war? Is ignoring warning signs, so you end up having a bigger war later on. That is worse. Because using, let's say, police force to enforce laws, it's not nice to use force in general, but you have to do it. But if you stop tying the hands of the police or the country, no, we think that every force is bad, you're going to end up having to use way more force, or way more force is going to be used on you by very bad people because you tied the hands of the law enforcement. All right. Anyway, anything else, guys, that you want to say? Last final words before we finish?
Yeah, I have a last. Like I know you don't see the future. I don't know. Maybe you do see the future, Coptic. But do you think that what happened to Lebanon, that so many Palestinians and so many Muslim came into Lebanon and kind of changed the demographic? Do you think it's going to happen? Like I'm not saying in the whole of the United States, but maybe in some states in America.
I'd have to know the population of like a certain. I mean, listen, Dearborn is gone. It's the Islamic Republic of Dearborn now, so that's a done deal. But to achieve, I mean, the thing is that they don't need a high percentage to start making an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Once it reaches 10, 15%, I mean, they're already achieving political office. They're already in the media. They're already. I mean, it's hard to undo. You can't put the toothpaste back in the bottle, so to speak. It's we need, and this is, by the way, what's funny is, so when the beginning of the war happened, right? I knew that Biden was going to lose the next election because I know that the leftists are too stupid to realize when they have an ally in office. And so at this point, I'm still pro-Palestine, right? So I'm telling myself, yeah, I'm not going to vote for anybody. I'm just going to sit this election out. But by May, June, I was like, I'm voting for Trump, and I hope he puts in a Muslim immigration ban, and I hope he kicks out all these motherfuckers at the colleges. So, that's what we need. We need strong immigration because I'm sick of importing people here that don't share our values and hate this country and hate what we stand for.
Yeah. You know what? I have a good. We're gonna finish with that. I have a good answer to the question. I think I have a good answer to the question that Lou asked. Lou asked, if Europe falls, do you think that makes Israel more at risk?
Say it again.
Well, here's the thing. If Europe falls, or if Europe become Muslim, does that make Israel more at risk? And here's my answer. My answer is absolutely yes. Think about it right now. Israel is defending itself against an invading force that came and tried to genocide them and then kidnapped their women and children and are still holding them, while keep chanting that they want to repeat what they did. They just want to repeat it. So they're still saying that in Gaza. And Israel is still fighting that war, trying to bring back. The war would end very fast if they bring back the hostages and surrender the terrorists who did these crimes. And already you have so many countries in Europe and so many politicians that are going against Israel and calling to boycott Israel. Now imagine what's going to happen when these countries are going to be caliphs, when they're going to be Muslim run. Absolutely, the hatred will be over the roof. And now I'm going to add something. I'm not a religious person, but I used to think a lot about it because I studied religion. I was very fascinated by it. In the book of how do you call it? The final book, Revelation. The book of Revelation. they talk about, the prophecies of the end of the war, Gog and Magog, Armageddon, which is a mountain in Israel called Har Megiddo. That's why they call it Armageddon, because Har is a mountain and Megiddo is an area. And that's where they say the final battle is going to happen. A lot of prophecies in the Bible talk about that the most of the world will come united and will come to attack Israel. And that's basically, and Israel will fight and will get, depleted out of their weapons, and they're the brave, strong men and women that will fight to the last, and only then, that's what, the book is saying, only at the end, the Messiah will come and, will help. So people tend to think like, how can that even happen? That's not realistic. I mean, the world is not going to turn against Israel. That doesn't make sense. Well, guys, you know what? If the world becomes Muslim, that prophecy just became way, way more closer to happening. Way more closer to happening. And because, you have other forces that definitely are not very good allies with Israel. So anyway, I'm not a religious person, but that was one of the things I used to think about. If anything is actually showing that these prophecies can really happen, is that Europe will fall and become Muslim, and America will fall, because America is one of the last guardians of the gate bastions that are holding the world from going crazy. Take down America, the world is a very bad place to live in. Very bad place. Take down America, Israel is in deep trouble. They're going to have to fight to the last one to defend themselves. America is kind of holding the world from going crazy, and America is holding the world, a lot of bad guys in the world, from going all on against Israel. So if America falls from inside and Europe become Muslim, we just really brought ourselves very close to that prophecy happening, when you think about it.
I think it's, sometimes, sorry, I'll just end it with that. Sometimes some prophecies are self-fulfilling prophecies. Sometimes people read those prophecies and say, we need to bring that to, we need to get to this moment. And I think this is correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that some preachers in Islam say that that's what they want to bring. They want to get to this point where in the Quran they say every Jew will hide behind a tree and the stone will say, when the stone and the trees will talk. And I think that's what they want. They want to get to this position. So you're saying maybe this is the prophecy getting, coming to fruition. I'm saying they are driving this prophecy to fruition. We can stop this prophecy from coming. We can fight it.
Yeah.
But it is going to be...
Again, I'm going to go full crazy kind of biblical nerd on you guys. There's a verse in the Bible, in Zechariah 12:2-3 and Isaiah 8:14. Both of them are kind of different. Isaiah was like a prophet on steroids. And they both kind of, to summarize it, they say, I will make Israel, or make Jerusalem, a stumbling block for the nations of the world, and a stone that the nation will stumble on it. And he meant morally stumble or any other way stumbling. And you can see that today happening. Look at all the nations that start hating Israel. What happened to them? And the nations that actually support Israel, how do they look like? And you can see a nation, Nazi Germany, Russia, they're not very good friends of Israel, and the Muslim world. And so all the nations in the world that really hate Israel, they're looking really, really bad. Morally, inside, things are going really bad for them. France, UK, and nations that are standing, we're standing with Israel. They're looking good. Now you can take it spiritually, just take it even not spiritually, just take it as, morally. Because literally, guys, Israel is a good country. The Jews are really nice people. And if you really want to hate them, that means that you're very bad. Because they're honestly very good people. I'm saying that as an Arab living in Israel. So if someone hates good people for no reason, that someone is not so good. And if the whole country supports that, then that country is becoming not so good. So again, that prophecy, or that pearl of wisdom that he wrote in a scroll, is so relevant today. Here, I'll read the full Bible. The full verse from Zechariah. Behold,
not the full Bible. Don't go full Bible.
Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about. And in that day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all the people. All that burden himself with it shall be cut in pieces, though all people of the earth be gathered together against it. That was that. In Isaiah 8:14, he will be a stone that causes people to stumble and a rock that makes them fall. And for the people of Jerusalem, he will be a trap. And Ezekiel talks about Gog and Magog. Okay. Anyway, so see, that's a very interesting verse. I've been thinking about it lately.
Yeah, I think that also what you said about the whole, when people hate good people, and it connects to what Coptic Mike said about, the humanization of Israel and Jews. It just came to my attention that there was a book that came out right now called Understanding Hamas and Why It Matters. So they have a problem with humanizing Israel and Jews, but it is very important for the far left to understand Hamas and why it's important. It's very important to see. So I want to say something like that. Primo Levi, I think it was Primo Levi, who survived the Holocaust, said that, the Nazis were humans. And we should never forget that the Nazis were humans. That is a very, very strong, and, because we all wanted to say that they're monsters, right? And it's important to say that, yes, humans can and sometimes can be the worst monsters in history. And it's okay to understand Hamas's position, but that doesn't humanize them. Just because you understand them, it doesn't humanize them. Just because they're humans doesn't make that their actions any less agreeable, like egregious.
Egregious.
Egregious. That's it. Thank you. That's the thing. So if you are coming from a real perspective, and again, I am always saying, any pro-Palestinian, anyone who wants to come and debate me, I am more than welcome. Me, Mansour, I'm sure Coptic, everyone here would like. I'm not sure if Alex is, but
sure, yeah.
No, but we all
sure.
want to have a discussion and just to have like a real serious debate. But I don't see that from the other side. I see like pure hatred, pure contempt. Sorry.
It is
Yeah.
pure hatred. I mean, look, there were Arab Israeli victims of October 7th. Yeah, I never see a GoFundMe or a crowd, like a fundraising event that I see like these pro-Pali activists doing for Gazans. They're almost, in a sense, like almost forgotten victims, and it's really sad. But if you were to try to debate them, of course they're going to run away from that because, in the face of fact, their entire narrative falls apart. That's why when you see people like Yusuf Haddad and Musab Hassan Yusuf, when they went to a place like Oxford to debate, they were just screamed at. They're not interested in having a conversation. Similar in the same vein that they're not interested in really a ceasefire. They just want to be able to kill Jewish people without repercussions. They're the most pro-war people on earth.
Yeah, that's the weird twist of it. That's the sick twist of it in the end.
Yeah, Joe Carr said something interesting here. I think a huge contributor to leftist Israel hatred is her ethnic pride and insistence of being a Jewish state. They are so far removed from any tribe, they just can't understand it. There's probably a point into that, but then again, it's the only Jewish state in the world. And I mean, come on, guys, wake up. They literally tried to genocide them, literally, and they genocided, they killed more than half of them. And now they have one Jewish state, which is their country. Everything in that history, at least, for the last 4,000 years, 3,000 years, it's literally their history there. There's literally, archaeological evidence. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it with my own eyes, and I've been to it. I've walked all over Israel by foot. It's Jewish. It's a Jewish land. And they have only one. There's a lot of Muslim lands. There's a lot of Christian lands. There's a lot of other lands all around the globe. And it's a very tiny one also. So to come and hate them for wanting to have their own land and to being also a little bit paranoid because for 2,000 years they've been persecuted, killed, enslaved, exiled. They're the only nation that survived 2 exiles. So
yeah,
that's also interesting that you're talking about it. I don't know if you heard of it, Coptic, but one of the things that I heard from far left, white people, especially white Europeans, when I'm telling about why are you so against like Israel and everything. And one of the things that they're saying is like, okay, yeah, I understand you had 6 million people killed and everything, and it was bad and it's horrible. But then why don't you ask Germany for a piece of your land? Because it was, it was Germany that propagated that. So I was saying, because, well, Israel is our homeland, like historical homeland. I'm not religious whatsoever. So I don't care about the Bible. I don't care about what it says. But there, you cannot say that there is no history there. And just the idea of saying, so yeah, just because the Germans did something to you doesn't mean you can do stuff like to the Palestinians, or you're acting the same way. And just like the whole trying to make Israel the new Nazis, it is driving me insane. It drives me like
It's one of the more disgusting forms of anti-Semitism, is drawing a comparison with one of the worst, if not the worst, oppressors of the Jewish people to, Jewish people just defending themselves. And I'm not a religious person either, as you can probably tell. In this book that I have with me, The One Jewish State, it sort of does lean kind of heavy into the religious aspect. But that's the beautiful thing about Israel, okay? You can actually use the Bible as a secular argument for Israel, because it's undeniable that the stuff in the Bible is corroborated by history. You can't dispute this.
True. Yep. It's
But
true.
that's actually one of the biggest misconceptions here in the West, and it was one of my misconceptions, so I know it well. Most people here do not understand that there has been a Jewish presence in the state of Israel, in the land of Israel, throughout history. People believe that you guys were expelled, you went away for 1,000 years or more. Why would you go back now? It's not your land anymore. That's one of the biggest issues and the biggest misconceptions that people have. They understand that historically your people were tied to the land, but they don't understand that there has been a consistent presence there all along. This is one of the most important things, I think.
True. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, look at who are the ones that are calling Israel Nazi. It's usually the ones that are the closest to the Nazi ideology themselves. So the Nazis are known, for trying to genocide the Jews. That's one of the main things there isn't known. Many other things, but that's like a big thing. And then most of the ones that are calling Israel Nazis are Muslims in the West or pro-Palestinians in the West. And they want to destroy the Jews as well. So that's like, imagine you're living in a town and there's a group of, thieves in the town. They know that if you steal, you go to jail. So they all come together and say, we don't like this guy. Let's just say he's a thief. Now they're thieves. They know that if they get caught, they go to jail. So they're going to come and say, you're a thief. And they're going to all yell it and shout it. And they shout it long enough. And they realize, wow, that's a great tool. We can get people that oppose us to get to jail because that works. As if we would get caught, we'd go to jail. So let's throw it. Now, the only thing October 7th changed is suddenly these thieves, these anti-Semites, stop pretending that they're not anti-Semites because they realize actually pretty cool. Wow, that's insane. You can now freely say it that you're an anti-Semite and that you support Nazi ideology, and people don't cancel you anymore. And that is the sign of a morally corrupted, society. Thank you, Michael Fernandez. That's very generous of you. And also thank you, Hazel, for the super like or super thanks.
Super chat.
All right, guys, I think we spoke enough. That was a very long one, but a very good one. Coptic Kapara Freelancers Mossad Agent. We shared here your Instagram. Anyone who wants, guys, go and follow the guy. He deserves to have more followers and more audience, and also to show him our support, because I can assure you that for every voice like his voice, like my voice, that are coming, let's say, from that world, the Arab world, or, he was he converted to Islam and came out of Islam. He was part of the pro-Palestinian movement and came out. I can assure you that we're getting a lot of hate. And the more you put yourself out there, you get a lot of hate, more hate. So it's always good to show these people the support and the love, especially in a world that for every one of us, there's like, 1,000 of them. So
they have the numbers. We have the history and reality.
Yeah. Reality. So yeah, go show him some support and like and shares and just show him your appreciation. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Roy the Kid. You're lucky that I didn't give you any funny names this time in your description. And until then, guys, don't do anything stupid. In general, just don't do anything that I would do.
Thank you, everyone.
Bring them back home. Am Yisrael Chai.
I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Thank
Exactly.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
Alex. Thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you. Thank you for having me.
Of course.